12:30, so we're a little bit early. So we just got to wait for
Look at the size of this function.
To welcome Bob Arum, the world's leading boxing promoter, to New Zealand. He came in this morning, and you're about to find that he will talk to you and talk about all kinds of things. He is here and available to talk to you regarding the fight, and we have a very special announcement today. Before I introduce David Higgins and Dean Lonergan, who are the founder and director of Duco events, I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of John Hunter in the room, boss of Burger King. John came on board with us maybe 18 months ago and started the road to the title, and without your support, John, we wouldn't be here today, so we appreciate everything you do with Burger King. There are a number of media opportunities today, and I'll just go through them. The first one is this one, and then at 2 o'clock this afternoon, we have Joseph Parker at Marcelin College. Please do not arrive at Marcelin College before 2 p.m. He will hand out some sports awards and get his photo taken with the schools. Apparently there is a teacher there he's particularly fond of that he would like to see. So that will be a media session from 2 to around 2:45, and Joseph will leave pretty quickly after that. At 5 o'clock, Mr. Arum and I will be back here for the Australian press conference because Jeff Warne, our number 2 welterweight, is on the undercard. And obviously, when he is number 2 in the WBO and Bob Arum promotes the champion and Manny Pacquiao, the Australian media are particularly interested in his views on the welterweight division. And finally, at 6 p.m. tonight, Joseph Parker will be at Burger King in Queen Street, 222 to 228, where he'll be having signing sessions with all the fans. I think we put the belt there as well, so it's an opportunity yet again for the fans to get in and amongst what is becoming a really special week in New Zealand sport. It is ironic that I think I'm standing next to the oldest promoter in world boxing and the youngest promoter in world boxing, and I would ask the founder of Duco events, David Higgins, to come up and say a few words.
Yes, so thank you everyone for coming today. I think it's further evidence that there's a historic event in New Zealand sporting history happening when you have Bob Arum in the country. I believe it's Bob's first time to visit New Zealand. It's a privilege to have him here. I think he's the most accomplished and the greatest boxing promoter in the history of the sport. Guys like Don King have had a lot of attention, but he's faded lately, but Bob's been at the top for a very long time. So he's a very interesting guy, Bob. I mean, our business isn't just boxing, we're doing speaker events, etc. And just in the few times I've met Bob, you know, he's connected to everyone from Hillary Clinton to Judge Judy, to you name it, Steven Spielberg, and you know, he's done everything there is to do in boxing. The Thriller in Manila was an Arum promotion. He was just talking earlier about doing TV deals with Silvio Berlusconi in Italy. There's not enough time to hear all the great stories that Bob has. So anyway, it was Bob actually suggested that there could be a win-win co-promotional arrangement between Duco events and Top Rank, and we liked his style from the beginning. He's accessible. You know, some of those CEO guys like Bob, they won't take your call or whatever. Bob is accessible, straightforward. We sat down with him in Beverly Hills, and he spelt out a very simple arrangement that made perfect sense, where both parties win. So I don't think we do a deal like this with any other promoter. You'd worry that they've got an agenda or they're trying to slant things their way, whatever. We never felt like that with Bob. It's a simple arrangement whereby, obviously, Bob's got such a legacy, particularly in the American market, television contacts, sponsors, you name it, understands that market. So what he suggested is, why don't we allow him to help us in the American continent, whereby when fights are offshore, Bob will handle American television and the American side of the arrangements, and we'll share the American revenue. And then also, when we fight in America, he suggested a simple, transparent joint venture whereby Duco would keep the New Zealand and Australian TV and everything else goes in the pot to be shared, and Bob talked about, quote, making Joseph a pay-per-view star in the United States potentially, and other talent we work with. And so the deal was simple, it made sense, and we're excited about it, and we look forward to working with Bob Arum and Top Rank. So I think that's all from me, but I might ask Bob to say a few words perhaps.
Thank you very much, David. I'm delighted to be here, really delighted to be here. Unfortunately, I'm not a man of a few words. And I look forward to talking to all of you at length while I'm here this week. We'll have plenty of time to talk. Any subject is open, except one. I'm as embarrassed as everybody else with the electorate in my country having selected Mr. Trump as president, and I'll leave it at that. And that's the one subject I don't want to talk about, because it doesn't really make me feel good to talk about it. Look, we have in boxing something that is very, very unique. Boxing is a sport that is understood all over the world. It is not a difficult sport to follow. It doesn't have a lot of crazy rules. It doesn't have, it is not so sophisticated that people can't follow it all over. And you look at the sporting scene and you realize that sports is becoming the premier content for television, and even more important for the internet, where it's going to really boom in the years ahead. The sport of boxing is global, and it is the desire of my company to really take this sport and enhance it on a global basis. Now look what we've done in China for the last 2 or 3 years. Together with our Chinese partner, Seika, which is a company in China, a subsidiary of a major company, which is involved in the sports agency business. We have set up a promotional company, and we promote fights all over China, particularly Macau, Hong Kong, Shanghai. We promote Zhou Shiming, the two-time Olympic gold medal winner, who is now 112-pound world champion. And so boxing is booming in China, and that is, I think, very, very important for the sport. And you have New Zealand and Australia, where you have an affinity for boxing. There's always been great interest in the sport, even though very few or relatively few major events got to take place in this part of the world. And that's going to change, because with the interest that we feel is there in New Zealand, and the interest which we see is being generated by this heavyweight championship fight between Parker and Ruiz, boxing will boom in this part of the world, particularly when it's led by a company that understands what can be done with the sport the way Duco does. So we're delighted to align ourselves with Duco to bring fighters from this part of the world to fight in other parts of the world, like the United States, and to bring fighters from around the world to fight here in New Zealand and in Australia. sport of boxing brings tremendous tourism all over. I remember when this kid, Ricky Hatton, from Manchester, fought in the United States. He fought against Mayweather, and then he fought against Pacquiao, and he would bring 5,000 to 10,000 fans to Las Vegas, so that really the night of the event there were more Ricky Hatton English fans in the arena than there were Americans, because of the kind of support that he had. And there's a story, it may be apocryphal, the Ricky Hatton fans that came to Las Vegas to watch him fight didn't necessarily spend a lot of money in the casinos, but they were the biggest beer drinkers in the world. And the hotels and casinos had to make beer runs, you know, from as far away from Las Vegas as Arizona and Southern California, to have the trucks bring in supplies of beer because they couldn't keep enough beer on hand for the Brits. But that was great, and it was really something that was very, very exciting. So now we have this sport that is going to go even more global than it has before. It's going to have a great base here in New Zealand. This is just, believe me, just the start. Now, if Parker does defeat Andy Ruiz, then we will, together with Duco, perhaps have Parker fight in the United States, but then come back and fight here, and maybe fight in China, and maybe we'll have Zhao Shiming be part of a card here in New Zealand, so that 5,000–6,000 Chinese fans can come to New Zealand to enjoy this the city of Auckland and this great country. I mean, the future for my sport, boxing, is really there before us. Now, I know you're saying, who's this old guy? He's going to be 85 years old. Who's the hell is he talking about a future? Well, my future may not be as long as, and it certainly won't be, as the future for this sport of boxing. But sport of boxing has a great, great, glorious future ahead of us, and I really believe that with my new partners at Duco, David and Dean, we will help bring about the really blossoming of the sport of boxing, so that it is even greater than it's ever been before, and it's greater than it's ever been now. I am really extraordinarily optimistic for the sport and what we will be accomplishing in the future.